All right, I'm calling this meeting to order. If we could do a roll call, would you mind?
Yeah, Deanna's here, Deanna Thoman. Oh, sorry.
Frank Wagner.
Jordan Sullivan.
Kevin Boyd.
Cecile Kinsley.
Noah Stork.
Margaret Beck.
And Sherry is walking in, so I'm pointing that out for our minute taker. So the first item on the agenda is public discussion of anything not on the agenda. I think the folks here are for the next item, so we will move on to that. All right, item D, certificate of appropriateness. This is for 2525 Highlander Place.
Okay, 2525 Highlander Place. Some of you were here when we recently landmarked it, and some were not. So we're not going to talk about it a whole lot, though. But North Dodge Street going to Solon, Interstate 80, and this is the location of the building. As we're looking at it right here, we have three main things that are going on. A canopy reconstruction, a canopy alteration, and then there are some sliding glass doors being replaced. Generally, that's what's going on. This is the area that was the supper club that was first constructed, and the rest of this is the convention center that was constructed afterwards. This canopy that projects from the building right here is what has been removed over time. The columns with brick bases and a steel column still remain, but this part will be reconstructed, and some of the other inappropriate materials will be removed. This is the south-facing canopy as it was at its extent, and some cladding that's been added to it will be removed, and it was cut back so that it was more like flush with the columns, and that will be extended. This is a sketch from 1966 showing kind of what it looked like from the end of the supper club, this canopy jutting out on the columns. You can see a mansard cornice that extends around the side of the building. Here's the business card that showed what it looked like. You can see that there's some clerestory windows up here underneath this bump up. Basically, there's a special beam that is used to create that profile in the roof. And all of this part out here will be rebuilt again. This is what it looks like right now. The red arrows point to areas where the material that is there will be removed, and then cedar shingles will be installed. The very edge of the roof, kind of the drip edge and flashing, all that kind of stuff will be updated, but mainly we're going to get rid of this kind of maybe black painted plywood material. I don't know if this is a roofing or plywood or what, but it'll be removed as well. And then this is where those clerestory windows are located, and this is an EIFS system. It's kind of similar to a modern cheap stucco product. It will be removed. And then this is where the canopy will be reconstructed. You can see the base of a column and then the column here. One of the things I asked since the staff report was written was, at the time when we were talking about the supper club, there had been a comment about that pan of that canopy holding water. And so I did ask about that, and they are solving that, and the way they're doing that is actually cutting the existing column a little bit shorter so that there will be some slope. And since they're steel, that should be able to be done, and you wouldn't really notice it unless you knew. I'll show you a little bit about the drawings, just because we don't have a lot of opportunity to look at a set of architectural drawings. I didn't give you all of the drawings in what you got. Basically, the set goes through and talks about the demolition first, and then they talk about the plan, any plan drawings. And at one meeting, we talked about plan drawings as being a cut through the building at about 4 feet and everything that you would see down below. The elevations or the exterior walls of the building are in the 200 drawings, and then you get sections or cuts through the building, like looking at the wall and the whatever you cut through. That's the 300s. I skipped the 400s because those are all interior wall elevations. And then the 500s are usually details. And I'll kind of show you a little bit of some of these. This drawing that you see right here is a detail from the AD or demolition drawings. And this is an elevation because it's a 200. And it basically shows you with dashed lines things that are going to be removed. There's keynotes along the side. They talk about the existing brick, the existing stone, removing the ephes in here, removing this entry door, and we'll look at some of those a little bit further. When you look at the plan drawing, which this is the plan, so we're cutting through the wall about 4 feet and looking down. This is the west end here. And you can see these markers. This is a line that is telling you that there is a drawing, and it's drawing, I think, 3 on sheet 301, and it's looking in the direction of the arrow on this little circle. So you're going to be, this one actually happens to be a cut through the end of the canopy. There's a little arrow right here. This doesn't belong there, but there's this little arrow here, and it's talking about a 200 sheet, so it's going to be looking at the elevation drawing of that end. When we look here, there's a long line that cuts through with that little tail and a little circle with an arrow here, and it has a 300. This is a section through this part of the building. And so that drawing, when you find it, it's like if you cut the building right there and looked at the wall in the direction of the arrow facing. They've circled some things here. Those have to do with the interior elevations that I didn't include, but we'll look at, let's see, we're going to look at, we're going to look at this elevation drawing, so the one that this marker is pointing at. And that is here. And so this is very similar to the demolition drawing that we just saw because it's the same thing at the same scale, but now it tells you all the new materials that they're going to be putting on. So for instance, these little, well, maybe, I think the little 3s are probably the new cedar shingles that are going to go in there. You can now see where the windows are. And this number 12 probably says that this is the amber glass, and you're gonna, make sure it looks okay and repair it if it needs to be or something like that. 2, again, is the brick, and we have the stone. And since we're looking at the building flat, the first thing we can actually see are those columns out in front. There's no space here, so it's everything just like if you're looking at it flat. So we can see, like, this is one of the columns. It's, it's out in kind of front of the building. This is its brick base. In here we have the new pan, but it's just a flat elevation drawing, and that's why it looks that way. So the next,
Jessica,
yeah.
I don't know if there's a way you can present so that your cursor isn't really like showing us what you're, yeah.
Get there?
There, yeah.
Okay.
Now it's
I
working.
think it just matters what drawing. So I was talking about these
we go.
numbers here, and so this was the elevation marker looking at the building. And then this long one through here was the cut of one of the section drawings. This is another section drawing cutting through the end of the canopy. And that's what I was basically showing on that one. Okay. So we have this section drawing here, and it is next. And in the drawing set, they included a drawing from the original set just so you could see that they are referencing it, so everybody knows what it originally looked like. And, the original drawing, it has the stone and the brick and the amber glass, and it shows the pan here. And scuppers. Scuppers are basically a commercial size way to get water away from your building, like gutters and downspout system, kind of. So at this point is where they cut through the end of the new canopy. And You can tell that they've cut through because the line is thicker and darker. And usually if you're going to cut through something, it's going to be shown that way. They have marked off some kind of details that we'll look at a bit. They're showing here how the column is shorter and the scupper is formed to get water away. And they're basically showing how it looks like the original one. Okay, so this is just a portion of the section through the building, that really long section. So we're kind of cutting through the building in an east-west way and looking north. And at this point, so this is where the roof goes up higher. So here we have the amber glass. This is the new canopy they're doing. And in the, on the far side of it, you can see where the lip comes up. At this point, there are some changes, and so that's why it's marked out in the drawing like this. It's going to be drawing 8 on sheet 503. The drawing for this would be drawing 5 on sheet 505. Okay, so this is a little faint, and I tried to darken it up, but just in the PowerPoint it showed up this way. So they have a detail. Again, this is kind of this area. So through the amber glass and the entry doors at that canopy, we first have a demolition drawing, and they're showing that they're removing kind of this overhang because it's going to be rebuilt. They're removing, there was ephes, there might have been stuff attached to the windows, kind of this build out of ephes, and then this kind of soffit that brought the soffit above the door down lower than it was probably originally. I'm guessing, but they've probably looked into that. So they're removing that. This is the door that will be replaced as well. So in the new drawing, you can see the overhang rebuilt. You can see now this new canopy structure. So they're going to use these, this is steel or metal studs, I don't know. I didn't look that up, but you can see how it is going to be framed out. There's going to be like a roofing membrane on there. And then this is the new soffit, which is up higher, so it's going to be up in this area above the door. And that exposes a beam that was probably original. When we talked about landmarking this building, they had used glue lam beams. It kind of became standard at one point, but there was a newer thing here where they could create a beam by gluing up wood, and it was strong and engineered. And so we see here how this kind of entry area will be changed and updated a little bit. This is another set of details that were kind of nice to look at least. This is kind of that top projecting area. So down in here, you're going to have the amber glass clerestory windows. And they're just showing that, they're adding this insulation and flashing and the cedar shingles. There's felt underneath. They're painting things. Here's the arched glue lam beam beyond. There's roofing membrane. Down here we have the same. You can read that it's insulation. There's an existing roof deck, so existing pieces are all called out in here as well. And then this is kind of like looking at where we have the new pan as well. This is a nice way to see how these two pieces of the canopy work together. And so they're showing you, all of this is new. So it's all new stuff that they are putting in there and how they're constructing that. And then we have a new beam right here that's going to carry the load of the canopy. Since it's cut at a certain position, it's a little odd looking at that moment. But this is kind of nice to look at right here. Just because we had it in the packet this way, I included these drawings as well. So you can see we're removing all of this ephes and exposing the windows. There's this build out down here that'll be removed. We have the original brick and the original stone, and here's the steel that'll be shortened a little bit. It'll still have this kind of like saddle detail that'll hold the new beams. The new cedar shingles, again, the stuff that was in the first image. And so this is from the south side, and you can see this is where the canopy will be reconstructed, and then these areas will have new cedar shingles. So on the south-facing canopy, this is the one where they basically covered it and altered it. And so right now you can see, you know, it's this heavy black, also probably ephes, has this big arch. Columns are wrapped in these gigantic brick things. This entry is going to really open up a lot and be a lot brighter once all of that brick is gone. This is kind of showing you, they're from different angles, but this is what we have now, and this was what there was originally. See, we have the columns here, and this end is right above it, but we can see here that we have the columns, and it projects quite a bit. And so that's what they'll be adding that back on. I guess this is stone. I mean, I can't tell from here, but that's what I have been told. So that'll be there and repaired. And then these columns are square, and they will be square and in a similar size to the original. Again, I don't know the material. I'm guessing that they were metal, but they'll be using a different material currently, partly because of the fact that there's cars around and trying to get something that will be long-lasting. I don't know a lot about that material, and I didn't have time to look it up in detail, but we do have people we can ask about it if you're interested later. But see how this is going to be a lot more open in this area in front of the entrance once they get rid of the brick that really just kind of pinches that entrance down quite a bit. This kind of shows those two areas, the ends of the canopy. So this is currently what we have at the end. And they talk about remove this material as well, leave the existing structure, remove the soffit, remove the brick, and then existing steel column to remain and protect right here. And then here is how they will be rebuilding that end, adding framing to bring it back out to something similar to the original dimension. They have to create a little, an appropriate roof edge, and then they'll be cladding the metal in this material as we talked about. And beyond that, they will be replacing they'll be replacing that west entry door. Similar entry door. The system is called storefront, and it's a typical system for this kind of installation, so that's not really concerning. They will replace the sliding glass doors between the rooms and the courtyard in that area outside the pool on the west end. And, our guidelines are clear about disallowing sliding glass doors, but this is one of those cases where it would have been likely original to the structure and certainly a very popular thing to install at the time that these were made. Sliding glass doors were really hitting their stride as far as becoming not only things for commercial residential, but also everybody's homes as well during the late 60s, early 70s, and into the 80s. As you may know. So other than that, I have basically recommend the motion just to approve this. Staff did not have any conditions to put on it.
All right, so just a reminder of the order of events here. Now's the time for any kind of just clarifying questions, something maybe Jessica said that you didn't quite understand. We'll have time to ask her more questions later. We'll do that, and then if the applicant wants to speak, we'll do that then, and then if there's any other members of the public, they could speak, and then we'll discuss them ourselves. So I don't know if there are any clarifying questions for Jessica. All right. Do you guys have any? You're welcome to speak. You're not obligated to. If you do, you need to come up to the mic so that
Sign in.
And sign in so the minute taker can keep track, and I think folks at home can hear you.
Okay. Nice to see you guys in person and not on the Zoom. I'm Angela Harrington. I own the Highlander. And I bought the Highlander I refer to her as a her, so apologize for that in advance, but I bought her 10 weeks before the pandemic. And let me tell you, it's been quite the ride. If it weren't for historic preservation, we could not only not do all of these things to put her back the way it was originally built and intended, but our future would be uncertain as well. We, probably would have a normal first year of about 2 million, and we had 200,000. So, and all of the, so you're not just saving a historic site, you're saving a business and an entrepreneur, and the only woman who owns a hotel in Iowa, and I own the only two, which is this one in Grinnell. But when I bought the Highlander 10 weeks before the pandemic, the hotel ranked dead last on TripAdvisor out of 37 hotels in all of Johnson County. There was, tremendous damage to the place. I'm sorry to say, but there was zero investment into the property for the 12 years prior to me buying it. And there was so much roof damage that there was probably 150 buckets all over the place. And I bought her anyway, right? That's crazy. And half of the rooms were out of service for bed bugs. When the pandemic struck, my husband and I sold our house in Grinnell quickly too, because we were headed for a financial disaster, right? So we sold our house in Grinnell, and we lived between the two hotels. It was fun for about 10 minutes. And now 2 years later, there we are. But the early memories, though, to know what a difference it is. So again, when I bought her, she was dead last on TripAdvisor out of 37 hotels in all of Johnson County. That's pretty low. That's last. That's big time last, because you've seen some distressed hotels, but the Highlander was last. And then a year later, the Highlander made it to number 1 on TripAdvisor and all of the online travel agents like Hotels.com, Expedia, and all of that, Google, and we've been there ever since. And pretty soon, mathematically, it'll be really tough. I hope all of you aren't hotel owners, but it'll be really tough to mathematically kick us out of that top spot. So that's really unusual for an independent hotel to beat all of those beige chains. So not that I feel strongly about that, but so I encourage you all. But again, when the pandemic looked to drag on, and I was looking for how am I going to save not only this business, but the building, because we have far less resources than we had intended. And again, several developers told me that it was impossible to not do it before you buy it or bid it. And no, so I said that's not acceptable, so I shouldered on. It received a rare unconditional approval by State Office of Historic Preservation on December 14th. So I am crossing fingers and toes now with your approval that I will get funding this round of allocation. We'll know by the end of January. And then if not, I'll just have to hold my breath and try to make things go, and because I'm really excited to get the project done. I mean, there's so much to do, and people pull up to the Highlander with that horrible Radisson, big bulky awfulness, and they're kind of come in and go, "Ooh, this is cool," but the outside, I mean, we only did the inside, and the first 6 months that my husband and I lived there, we kept half of it open with the old Clarion guests, coming so that we could at least have some income. And we then, in June, were like, we can't do this anymore, because it was so many drug deals, so much prostitution, so much illegal activity that the place was distressed on so many levels. It was really, really bad. So not only did you save an entrepreneur in a building, you saved, a 9 acres in a very important juncture in the city from really becoming, it was on its last leg. I mean, in so many ways. They were one dryer short of the poor housekeepers having to, hang up the laundry. It was so bad. And I have a housekeeper there that's been there, two of them have been there 19 years. And this is the last thing I'll say, but they in 19 years, they only got the minimum wage when the minimum wage went up, and we all know that how often that's happened, right? And so now they make 3 times that, and they run the housekeeping. They're incredible people. They don't speak much English, but they're insanely talented, and we couldn't keep it going. So I pay everybody a living wage. We were voted coolest place to work, small business. I won Entrepreneur of the Year because of the Highlander, the Cedar Rapids, Iowa City Entrepreneur of the Year. There's been, 15 bloggers from all over the country talking about the Highlander. It was on the news, on the Des Moines News. We've seen 10,000 stays since we opened. All of them, almost all of them, 90% happen between Friday at noon and Sunday at noon. So we have no events still, and we have no business travel, but thankfully, because of that amazing vibe and the pool and everything else, she's going to make it. So am I. So I'm grateful to you. And, people don't think historic preservation is important, but it's some of the last natural resources that entrepreneurs and independents with crazy ideas that know there's only so many holes left in the earth to put these old buildings, that it's the only thing that saves them. So I'm grateful for your time and your work, and onward. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Okay. All right. I don't think anyone else is speaking. Any questions or anything? Otherwise, we'll.
It looks like he wants to speak.
Oh, do you want? You're welcome.
Only if you have questions about
Oh.
architectural.
Does anyone have any questions for the architect? I don't think so. I think we're in good shape. Okay. All right. Well, then we need a motion on the floor to discuss. Someone want to make a motion, and then we can have a conversation?
Wagner moved to approve a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 2525 Highlander Place as presented in the staff report.
And a second.
DeGraw, second.
All right. Any discussion?
Just to say it's a noble project, and I admire their courage and stick-to-itiveness.
Yeah, I would like to commend you for your work, too. I know that place like the back of my hand. I worked there for 10 years, from 75 to 85 in the busboy, maintenance, janitorial, everything else. I look forward to seeing it again.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. I think folks know that my grandparents were among the original owners and sold it in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I'm excited to see what it looks like what it looked like when I was a kid, and excited about this generally. So, and it's a great project for us to take on some mid-modern history as well, I think.
Yeah, the
And-
canopy is really something special. I think I'm glad it's going to be brought back.
Yeah, I think I follow several historic preservation Instagram accounts, which is like not a surprise, but they were all like, welcome to 1972, we're now historic, that's the, and so I'm glad we've got entrepreneurs like you who are doing this work and using preservation as the tool. I think it's I hope more of our community can follow your lead, so I appreciate it. All right. I think we're ready for a vote then, right? Yep. All right. All in favor? Oh, yeah, right. We've already had the motion. I'm sorry, guys. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The motion carries. Thank you very much.
Come see me at the Highlander. Yes. Left my phone up here, so thank you again.
Thank you. All right. We're on to the discussion of our annual work plan. That's item E. I asked Jessica just to put in, to show what we did last year. I don't know that we need to make a whole lot of changes to the work plan, other than maybe remove some of our short-term goals that we've accomplished last year, or I guess 2020. And I think probably add in the Montgomery Butler house. Nope, that's not the right one. Thanks to Gilmore. 2 years ago, Nope, a year ago. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what. All right. A year ago, we put together the work plan, the Gilmore house, which is a brick house on Market and just off Clinton Street. There had been agreement with the University of Iowa to preserve that building and move it across the street to the lot the city owns. That deal has fallen through. The university still owns it. There's no kind of long-term plan. So I think we should put that back into the work plan and open to other suggestions. But I think, other thoughts.
Did I see an article about that just the other day and not read it about some development with the house
I don't.
and the university's plan for it? I feel like somebody here would know if I had. If that was
I don't
true.
think so. I did a call with Friends of Historic Preservation just like Tuesday about this, and that didn't come up. So
Okay.
I feel like between it might have been. But the plan for the university at the time was to build an entrepreneurial center on that corner. That entrepreneurial center is now moving into the old art building, as I understand it. So that there's no plan at all for the need for that
Okay.
spot. So I'm open to other suggestions, other things. I didn't want to, we spent a lot of time on this, I think, a year ago and framed it in the terms of what the city council is doing. And as long as the city's manager and the planning person only give us half-time staff, it's going to be slow moving to accomplish this. So I'm happy to add in more things or adjust or reprioritize, but it seems like a pretty good document for us to continue to kind of use with a few amendments.
Are we going to do anything, how shall I put this? Might it not be a good idea to include something when people buy a house that's in an historic district, to include some kind of a statement from, give them, from the realty company would give them a statement explaining what it means to live in an historic district and what they need to do if they want to make plans, so that we don't have people being blindsided by the fact that they are in an historic district and being upset about it.
Yeah, I've actually talked to some realtors and the home builders about this very thing. So first of all, let me back up. We send out an annual letter to all of the property owners in the historic district, which obviously is after the fact that they own the property. It's tricky to, I don't know that the realtors really want to do that. I think some of the better ones reach out to Jessica in advance, and I know she fields calls from folks who are considering buying it and kind of ask what those are. That's a kind of a service that Jessica provides. I don't know that we see a lot of, I don't know that we all see that she does. I just know that she does it. But there's no kind of mechanism for us to kind of enforce that. I mean, we could certainly put something together. It just would be on the realtors to use. I know Jessica's presented to the realtors a year ago. I don't know if you have any.
That was this year we presented to the realtors, and it was through Zoom. We had maybe half dozen of them or something. There wasn't a large number of them who were there. It was partly at their request and partly also because we had members of the public saying that they didn't know that they were in a district and they had wished that their realtors had told them. There had been some discussion among staff about creating some kind of shorter, more brochure-like version of some guidelines to kind of hand out. That we haven't gotten anywhere because of staff and stuff like that on that project, but that's something we discussed internally. But it's some realtors don't know or don't ask, or they might not want to tell the potential buyer for a
But at
variety
least
of
we would be discharging our responsibility to inform people by making such a document available.
Correct. And it is the kind of thing where, yes, anybody who calls because they might have a building and they first want to find out if it's in a neighborhood, we answer those questions. And then if they have further questions about it, and we do have at least one realtor who really contacts us a lot about properties, but not a wide range of realtors. It tends to depend. Some of them do know if they have somebody who wants to I don't know, take down a garage or something to call and talk to us about it first. And we get those calls sometimes a little bit more randomly. So.
Yeah, I mean, Cecilia, I love the idea. We've accomplished almost nothing on this list from a year ago because the leadership at the city staff does not prioritize historic preservation.
Okay.
And I'll be honest, if we want to do that, they're very responsive to economic interests. So if we have the realtors make that call and ask for that, it probably gets prioritized over our work. Just being very candid about my experiences. But that's just, if we want to try to get that done, we should have some realtors call the city manager, and we could probably get it done.
I can.
I'm being a little cynical tonight, guys. I'm sorry about
It's
that.
okay.
Well, I'm still feeling that way.
There are several things I noted that, I wanted to point out, like the fact that you, did reach out to city council about a subcommittee and, about telling the full history and hadn't heard back, on that. There is a short-term goal under climate action to advocate that embodied energy is worth valuing and a statement on that. I do know that the city of Boston has teamed up with someone who was creating an online calculator. You have to input certain information about your building, and it will calculate embodied energy versus running a new building energy and make those kinds of calculations. And it should be available online sometime later this spring. And so, that's not something that is specific for our community, but you can put in, as far as I know, regional information and stuff like that as well, so it can still be valid for our area. It's not something I have looked into or tried a lot, but when it does come out, I will get a notification and I'll try it out, look at it, and then pass that information along to the commission and see what else we can do about getting it out to the public so that they can know that information as well, too.
This question, in what month does that letter to homeowners go out, informing them that they're in an historic district?
It unfortunately varies greatly depending on our ability to do that project and interns. We usually use interns to do that, and sometimes they're not trained in certain things, or we get sidetracked with other duties. We would really like to do it in like April. The latest it ever went out was September.
It's generally in the spring, kind of as
Right.
the people are kind of making plans for
Yeah,
their.
April, May, kind of.
The assessor website might be an area where a house could have a designation of historic contributing in a historic district or non-contributing. I think people who are local are familiar with using it, and I would say an out-of-towner buying a house might have to be tipped off to look at that.
Well, and they can look it up on the Johnson County Property Information Viewer. That is the other way they can look. They do have to know to turn on the Iowa City zoning, and then they do also have to know that a neighborhood or a property that's an individual landmark would have a hatch on it, and they could click on that to see what that is. So it could be looked up in that way for the general public.
You'd have to be a pretty savvy member of the general public to know where to look or that such a thing even existed.
Yeah, I've never seen that.
True. So anyway, under short-term goals, we've had at least one meeting with the realtors.
Yeah.
For strengthening our community engagement and intergovernmental relationships.
How did they react to that, by the way?
They, at least during the, basically I presented information and they asked questions, some specific, some general. A few followed up with questions in the following weeks. They seemed to like it and think it was worthwhile. But yeah, it was kind of a small number of people who were there, so.
That was a request. So the city staff, planning staff, most of them meet every other month with the Home Builders Association. Meetings that are hard for me to get with those same people, just to be very candid. But it was the home builders who asked us to do that realtor meeting and why it happened.
Well, and we had both a realtor meeting and a meeting with the Home Builders Association. We did both this year. Where it was a similar presentation. For the realtors, it was also saying how you can help as a realtor, so.
Is that something they'd be happy to request to be happen again, since so few people attended and it was well received?
Maybe, and it's also created already now. Mhm. So.
Do you have other, I'm sorry, I feel like
No,
I'm.
well, and part of the reason, we do go through the work plan, and I'll mention this again later, but every February, we have an annual report due to the state Historic Preservation Office. They wrangle or work with all of the certified local governments. We all provide them with an annual report. And part of that is the commission adopting a work plan for the coming year. And so every year, as part of that, we go through the work plan and determine, what the plan is. And there's a large amount of items on there, so sometimes trying to prioritize things, it might be something that you would do. If there's things that you would add or update, I'll be creating the annual report for the next meeting, and then we'll approve both the work plan in its final form and the annual report at the next meeting.
Yeah, I was going to help with, because we're short on staff time, I was going to kind of take this work plan and add any amendments that we've got and kind of show the difference, if I took something out, just kind of strike through or whatever, so that I'm going to be gone in the February meeting. I've got a family obligation that I won't be here. Just Jordan's going to lead the meeting.
I'll lead the meeting. I'm taking notes today.
But so that you guys can just pass it as part of that. But so I thought the discussion tonight would be helpful and do that, and I'll kind of get it ready so that Jessica doesn't have to. I may rely on her a little bit if there's things I forget or whatever, but I'll do the first draft of it. Great. All right. Well, if you guys have other thoughts, we can, obviously the official voting is next month. So if you get home tonight and you're like, oh, we should have said this or done this or added this in, just email me. I'm happy to try to incorporate that before the next meeting when you officially vote on it. So.
And unfortunately, I didn't have time to make a presentation about this, but I did, and they're going to be here, so I'll show you. There are like 3 slides. And so first we have the Montgomery Butler House, and this is 2015 state, and a state right before it was mothballed, just to remind everybody what we're talking about with the Montgomery Butler House. And it's out at the water treatment facility north of the interstate on Dubuque Street. We have the Summit Street Monument, which is here. And I believe that the status of that is that Anne presented something, and she might be waiting to hear back. I'm not sure.
Presented something to whom?
To us.
To the commission.
Oh, okay.
I can follow up
She was going
on
to check
that.
with another museum, I believe, and I was
Oh.
going to follow up with the Daughters of the American Revolution
Oh,
and
okay.
Cecile, which I have not done yet. So
Oh, okay.
maybe we can visit after this meeting.
And then here is the Sanction Gilmore house, just for those of you who weren't around when we were really working on it. The view from the front and the now view from the side that you had never been able to see for 100 years until recently. Because as you can see, the house next to it was really close.
I was reading the Margaret Keyes's book on this house and was stunned. I didn't know, I'd never heard it said, that the foundation was made with the leftover blocks from building Old Capitol.
Yeah, we looked into that a little bit when we
Yeah.
were researching, and I think that is still just a myth as far as we know. There is some not really cut similar at all block in that basement in the foundation. It could be, but it's not like, oh yeah, that's definitely the same, because it's it's not dressed the same, so, it's not something where you can look at them and say.
It's just hard to verify because it's
Yeah.
like, because I think the way that she writes it is like the rubble or the leftover, right? So it could be like
Yeah,
broken rocks that they used when they were cutting on site or whatever.
yeah, we don't, it's not the.
It's
kind
hard to
of thing we-
verify without it. We'd probably have to get like a geologist or something. that
Yeah,
is-
we'd have to test it, probably.
Here's what I have to say about that. It is true until somebody tells me it's not. That's kind of,
Well, and unfortunately, if it was moved, it would not have
Right.
had that
Yeah.
foundation anymore.
The university has some old houses in that neighborhood that they use for guest houses. Would this not be a candidate for something like that?
Potentially, I don't know. That would be a use where it would have to go through a permitting process, housing. I'm sure even the university has some rules about that, and there would probably have to be some changes, but I don't know. Potentially.
I know that Friends is working on I have like a once a month call with Friends of Historic Preservation about this property, so they're working on it, on potential solutions.
University has its sights set on the Old Capitol Mall, I hear.
Oh.
Now that's coming down.
What?
That,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Where did you hear that?
I just read, it was a
It's
Daily
in-
Iowan article
Oh, it's
today.
in the Gazette too,
Oh,
yeah.
my gosh. Well, I should
They've
check.
had the
Maybe
option,
Gazette
they've had the option to buy it for a long time, so I think they're just executing it is my.
What do they want to put
I
there, did
don't,
they say?
I know, I don't know. All right, let's visit about that when the meeting's over.
Fair.
I have thoughts that I don't want on camera.
Okay.
Sorry. All right, report issued, on certificates issued by chair and staff.
Okay, I'll go through these. 604 Ronald Street, we've worked through some roofing projects recently, and this flat roof kitchen addition on the back is getting a new roof system. It's a membrane roof, but anyway. 116 South Dodge Street has new ownership and a new roof. I mistakenly actually thought that maybe this scalloped shingle was indicative of trying to say, hey, this originally had a tile roof. And it did not. I would have been mistaken. According to the Sanborn Fire Insurance maps, I would assume it had a wood shingle roof. We're looking, this is the picture of the house on the corner, 706 College, and right here is that house. Here it is blown up. On my screen, I can see it as a roof that is not tile. I can't tell beyond that whether or not it's asphalt at that time. We don't know. This photo is anywhere between the 1920s and the 1960s, so it could have been asphalt by then. It's not the asphalt scallop shingle that's on there right now, because there's kind of a striation around it in a few different places. They're very faint. There's like 3 of them. But anyway, it was not a tile roof. And so it does have a traditional asphalt shingle, kind of mimicking the wood shingle that has been put on it instead.
It did have clay tile for many years, though.
No.
It did. I remember it, like,
Really?
in the late 80s and early 90s.
Interesting. I found no evidence of that.
The people who lived there for a long time, some of them are still alive, the Belgers. John McDonald's wife, the mayor there, he lived in that house.
Yeah, the McDonald kids, John McDonald, they grew up there.
Yeah.
They might
Might
remember.
remember whether it was
Interesting.
tile.
Yeah, I don't know. We looked through the old public documents and
Yeah.
everything else and couldn't find that. This is 610 East Jefferson Street. It is a local historic landmark. The owner does keep forgetting that, but it is the original rectory for St. Mary's, and they relocated it here when they built the brick rectory that they have now. And it just got a new roof as well. 507 North Lynn Street is a historic house with 2 large apartment buildings on the same lot, and it also got a new roof.
Muddled.
Okay.
Maybe someday we can get rid of this siding. Put a new porch on there. We had a few intermediate reviews. This is 823 Bowery Street. On the back, it had, okay, so there's this bump out. There was a large kind of cellar door with a sliding glass door at the end of it, a broken foundation wall. I mean, it was just a mess back there. And at one point, it had decks cascading all the way back to the property line. They are putting in a new foundation. It'll have a discrete door with actual concrete instead of wood foundation walls. It'll have a nice, simple entry stoop and a step, and they'll put a window in the side of the foundation over here. It's just a complete foundation replacement.
Is that privately owned, or is that a student rental?
It's privately owned. Signage, so the entry on our new downtown landmark here, the Crescent Block, just the signage. So where it was Revival 119, they're going to have Riverside Theater. This is an aluminum letter that they can just adhere to the glass, so then it could be removed easily. And then, oh, I'm sorry, I was again putting at the wrong one. So Riverside Theater and the address, both of these will just be nice, simple aluminum letters. And you can kind of see here, there's this little thing. It will be a projecting sign hanging off the canopy here. And staff and chair worked with them to make sure that we isolate these metals from each other and minimize the amount of holes that we're putting in that canopy. We assume it's original material. We do know that during construction, the curved glass right here was broken, and the contractor will have to replace that to match.
All right, on to item G, the consideration of minutes from the November 18th meeting. Any edits? Matt, we have a motion to approve the minutes.
Seligren, I move to approve the minutes for November 18, 2021.
Yep.
Bowman seconds.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. On to consideration of minutes for the December 9th meeting, 2021. Have a motion to approve the minutes.
Wagner, move to approve minutes from November 9th, 2021. December 9th, 2021.
Beck seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, on to commission discussion, City Park Pool.
I
Oh, boy.
only provided this slide, by the way.
Just don't want to go on. Oh, there we go.
That was kind of cool. Yeah, you could go down there.
Are you framing this up? We asked to talk about it, I think, at November meeting, and so we
Yeah,
are.
the November meeting, you asked to talk about it. I think Sherry had asked a question, and then Kevin asked it to be on the agenda, and so I provided a little information. There is a master planning project through Parks and Rec that's going through, and they had asked for opinions at one point, and that's one of the things that is attached in the agenda that I gave you. And I gave you some limited information. I was not actually able to find a whole lot of information. We weren't, digging into the Parks and Recs archives, that kind of thing. So it was more just me looking, asking a couple people some general stuff. We do know that the engineer of the pool was Ned Ashton, whose house is landmarked and owned by Parks and Rec. We do know it's been altered over time, such as the removal of the extremely creepy underground viewing area. I mean, I can't possibly actually imagine that, but it's gone. So anyway, I provided the information, a little bit of history, from Irving Weber and this part from Ned Ashton's scrapbook, and then the page from the website about the master plans in case you wanted to discuss that or talk about it at all.
One additional thing that I think, if you read a lot of the Weber stuff, he was a big fan of the City Park Pool. The thing he doesn't ever tout was that when they passed the bond issue, he was the campaign chair to pass the bond issue. And
he was a competitive swimmer, wasn't
yeah,
he?
he swam in Iowa.
Iowa swimmer.
And the pool, part of what motivated them to build the pool was people used to swim in City Park, and someone died
Yep.
in the thing, and there was a pretty gruesome photo of the dead kid in the Daily Iowan, which kind of outraged people into doing something, and then they worked on the bond issue, and Irving passed it. But then I think it passed right as we were like entering World War II, so they had the approval to do it, but waited until, I guess, whatever, 49 to get it done. Anyway, those are my two little, my personal nuggets of history that I know to add to the pool stuff. I don't know if we need any other discussion. Sherry, I know you had asked about it. I don't know if there's other things we should talk about. I think when you asked about it, we didn't have it on the agenda, so I wanted to make sure we had an opportunity to do it.
I think it's one of the few outdoor Olympic-sized pools in the Midwest.
Talk into your microphone.
Pardon? I think it's one of the few Olympic-sized outdoor pools in the Midwest with some potential historic character.
And I know I've heard kind of a buzz that will there be an effort to modernize this pool, kind of similar to, I think Coralville has a modern pool in other communities. And I don't know if that's the reason. I think I was reading in the minutes that a neighbor had wondered about this site and the importance of it. I would hope there are no plans to do away or modernize this pool, I guess.
I think some of the unknowns that people were considering is, will it get a splash pad? Will it get like kiddie slides? And then have the Olympic pool lap swimming nature of it removed?
I don't know. I know that they're doing the Parks and Recs is doing a big kind of aquatic study, right? That's the thing that was in the.
We kind of slid over the Butler House. Were we going to talk about that tonight, or is that still?
No, I need to finish a memo, and so
Okay.
I'm going to go to the Parks meeting in February, which is the night before our meeting when I'm still in town, and then you guys will can discuss when I'm not here. It's basically just to continue to do what we.
I won't be here in the February meeting either, and I don't want to miss it because well, never mind.
We can talk about it at other meetings too. I just.
We can put it back on. I think, staff, we were just waiting for Kevin to finish his memo on that or finish revising the draft or whatever stage we were at, and then we can put the Montgomery Butler House back on the agenda to discuss.
Basically, the Parks Commission, I think, is open to forming some kind of working group. I met with a commissioner who was asked to meet with us on behalf of the commission.
Yeah, I saw that in the minutes and wondered what the outcome of that.
The outcome is me writing a memo to both of the commissions that hasn't been done yet.
Okay.
So, I sent him an email when I was apologizing to him that I hadn't got it done. I'm like, well, this thing's been there for 160 years. I hope it can wait one more month till I get this memo done. I know. If it fails by 1 month, you can know who to blame.
Is it impossible to imagine that reverting to private hands simply because it's on city land? Would it be impossible for it to come back revived in some form, either as a residence or a business or an inn or something?
I mean,
Legally, is that?
I think you could. It seems harder. Probably have to be some kind of long-term lease. I mean, part of what we're trying to do with the working group is like explore all those ideas with some staff support, because it can't be just a handful of people coming up with ideas. You need somebody a professional to help move that conversation along, which is what the request is. So that's what's happening. It's my
Okay.
fault that I don't have it
Thank you.
done.
No, it's fine. I just thought I missed something.
No, I was hoping that people would. I don't like when I miss deadlines and people call me out on it, Cecile.
I didn't.
No, I'm just giving you a hard time. I just hope people kind of forget that I gave a specific timeline and let me slide. No, anyway, I will get both those done for the next meeting. All right. Any other city park pool conversations? I think we should maybe just keep an eye on what the plan is, and if the plan includes some major changes for us to maybe take a look at it again, I feel.
I do want to say, I spoke to somebody who is part of the planning, and it seems like they're leaning toward not making major changes, but it's very hard to say, but that was a huge concern that I voiced to her, and she had reached out to me, and it seemed like we were kind of on the same page. So I had a positive response from that conversation. So.
Good.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll have an opportunity to, I think, visit it again, and if we see something, if you see, this is just like a general thing, we're not really supposed to talk about things that aren't on the agenda, right? I think we can, like when we have things like annual report, we can loosely talk about anything like the Montgomery Butler House tied to that. But if people see stuff coming and they want to talk about it at the meeting, if you can get it into Jessica or to me before the meeting, or both of us, we can just add it to that conversation. So if somebody sees something, you are all welcome to add stuff to the commission information section so that we can talk about it at the meeting. One thing we can't talk about tonight, but I guess I want to ask if we want to, was the email that we got about the house on Ronald Street, if we want to put that on the next agenda or not. It's up to you guys.
Oh, to tear it down.
It seems like a lost cause to me.
Yeah, we designated, it was like my first or second meeting, we designated it non-historic, so. Okay.
You, though.
All right, annual report.
And all I'm going to say is that as I compile the annual report, if anyone took any education that relates to preservation, please tell me about it, but I need like specific things. I need to know who arranged it, what it's called, when it was, where it was, all that kind of stuff. Otherwise, if you are new this year, and I don't remember how many of you started in this calendar year, but I will send you a form I need you to fill out, and it's basically telling the state why you're a commissioner and who you are and stuff. And Frank, I'll need you to do a new one since there was a lapse and you became a new commissioner. Everybody does it, and it goes in as part of the report. I tend to hold those out of what we send to council and stuff, but it's still public information, so, don't tell me your life story or tell them your life story, just, fill it out. There might be a somewhat quick turnaround on that. I try to get on the ball and get it to you as soon as I can, but I haven't looked at the annual report yet, and I will need it back. It won't have to be back for the meeting because I can add it in, but I will need it back before the end of February, like around the 28th.
So we should just keep our eyes open in the next month or so for
Yes,
this.
and
Okay.
if you, not in the next 2 weeks, but anytime after that, if it pops into your head, you can always email me to remind me, and then maybe I can get that around to you right away.
If I recall, I feel like I just used what I wrote to the city council to apply to the commission and kind of rephrased it so it fit what their question
It
was.
is very similar. It needs to be on their form, and you have to sign it.
Are there examples online, or is that not publicly available in that way?
It's not that big of a deal.
It's really, I think it's like 2 questions, like why do you want to be on the
Oh,
commission? And
okay, I think I can handle it.
It's not a,
No,
right.
no, it's very.
there's no wrong answers really. Although I don't know that my following Instagram accounts counts as like ongoing historic preservation.
Education, yeah.
Education.
Historic Salvage Network.
Reading Architectural Digest in bed with coffee.
Yeah. All right, any other items on the annual report, anything related to annual report or our work plan before we adjourn? This frees us up to talk about almost anything.
They require we present it to council. We have done that the last 2 years, but we didn't before that, and so I'll remind them again that we're supposed to do that. Usually I do that, but we'll see what they want to do.
Great. All right, unless there's anything else, a motion to adjourn?
Celegrin, I move to adjourn.
Wagner, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Next meeting is in February,
What's the date? Well,
the 10th, February 10th.